Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, tonight I'm going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons Rules Cyclopedia. So I had mentioned in a recent video that I was expecting to get this in the mail sometime this week, and got home from work today, and I was like, great, there's a box, sitting on the clothes dryer, and busted it open, and out comes, this massive rule book. So, just a little background on it. It is, it's quite large volume, and I'll show you that in a different view. So there we go. So, so here's the book, and you can see it's, really quite large, hardcover. Got it through drive-through RPG. So it's brand new. Originally printed in 1991, and it's still produced by TSR. In case that's something that's of importance to you. For me, it actually was. I was kind of glad that it's not a reprint of some other license. That it is TSR. So I was happy to get that. The the actual book is, it's fairly well bound. It's nice hardcover. Uh, it did come to me a little bit dented on the corners. That's largely due to Amazon's packaging of this was I'm sorry, not Amazon. Drive-through's packaging of this book was, the book itself was not wrapped. It had bubble pack beneath it, and then it was just resting inside the box. So I don't know where they thought that was a good idea, but other than that, I mean, it's not really severely damaged. It was just two little tiny dents that I fixed up. But anyway, I mean, I was obviously familiar with playing Dungeons and Dragons back in the early 1980s. Actually, I started around 1977. Um, I had the I had the red box in 1983. I'm pretty sure we played. My group had played certainly the red box, and then through the first expansion. So we went from basic to expert. I don't think we ever went as far as companion and master, and that's because we switched from D&D to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons around that time frame. So when first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons came out, we picked that up right away, and we continued playing that. So I was not as familiar with with the later series of Dungeons and Dragons, and I certainly wasn't familiar with the actual setting for Dungeons and Dragons. We had spent all of our early years just creating and running our own adventures, and not in the context of a Dungeons and Dragons specific setting. And then when the World of Greyhawk was released, we started playing, in that setting almost exclusively. We never quite got to playing in Forgotten Realms, and what little experience I actually had in Forgotten Realms, you know, I wasn't very impressed with it. I just didn't, wasn't a big fan of Forgotten Realms. So, so let me start flipping through this book a little bit. Now, I do have it on the PDF, and I could show you the PDF instead, but I think that looking through the physical book itself is actually much more interesting. So once again, going to switch views. And so here we have it. It's actually such a massive book that, for me to try to get the whole thing in the shot is not really possible unless I went to a different angle and switched the orientation to stretch it on out, and it would distort it. But quality is very good. if you can see this, and I will try to, I will drop my camera down pretty low. So this will come into, come into play. It's kind of hard to notice, but you can see there's these, the leaves are actually green, and just that little splash of color, I think is such a, such a nice touch to it, because the rest is obviously in just black ink. But what little color they do add to it, I think really, improves the presentation of the rules. Now, these are the rules for playing Dungeons and Dragons, and this book will take you from first level all the way up to 36th level. And it starts off, as chapters. So each section, so chapter 1 is about creating characters. And like I said, what little color they do put in actually makes the charts, and the few little accents that they put on here kind of stand out. So it's a really nice touch that they did here. So all of, chapter 1, so chapter 1 ends around, interesting enough, I'm not seeing a page number. So, looking, no page numbers. Interesting. All right. That's actually kind of, that's actually kind of annoying, actually. I like to have page numbers. But, you go to the character classes for all of chapter 2, and it has the classes like you would have in Dungeons and Dragons, which means that the classes are fighter, magic user, thief, dwarf, elf, halfling, and then if you wish to include druid and mystic. All right, and they go through the various charts for the character classes, and they give you an overview of what the actual charts and everything look like, and then they go into the individual, actual character classes. So you have the fighter. This one here is the magic user, and so they go over the skill level and then the spells, the number of spells that they would get, all the way up to 36. Continuing on, so the thief, so it goes back, no playing around with rogues or acrobats or anything like that. They just came straight out. This is a thief, and you're, I think it really did play, like when they changed the name of it, of the class from thief to rogue, or to thief acrobat, and then later on to rogue. Not remembering quite what the progression was, but I think the class had lost something of itself when they switched from thief to rogue. You just looked at those characters, and other players, always assumed that the character that was a thief was driven by, the motivations of greed and, acquiring as much treasure as they could, regardless of the means of how they did it. So the characters tended to be chaotic and, not very trustworthy, and not, someone who the rest of the party tended to view with some suspicion. So there is some art scattered throughout the book, and just keep on going through. So character class of halfling, and so you can see there's quite a bit. Now chapter 3 is spells and spell casting. This is going to be a huge chapter because it has all of the magic user spells, all of the clerical spells, and all of the druidic spells. So you can see we keep on going through. We eventually get to chapter 4, which is equipment, and they go through all of the equipment. Now, all of this material is the material that you find in the first 4 box sets of Dungeons and Dragons. So not including anything that was in advanced. Now, this is fully compatible with Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition or Advanced D&D Second Edition, and it's both forwards compatible and backwards compatible. So 2E actually is quite usable with this booklet alone. So they go into characters and evasion. I'll let the view catch up a little bit, if it actually does. Let's drop this down a little bit. There we go. So Chapter 7 is Encounters and Evasion. Combat, Chapter 8. And they go through all of the various types of combat that's in here. So melee, missile, they do air combat, mass combat, water, both underwater combat, sea combat, so on ships and such. So they cover all types of combat. Here's Chapter 9 is on mass combat, dealing with war machines and troop classes. Probably goes a bit back to its, its wargaming miniature based roots. What I really was impressed though, and I was hoping that it would spend some time. So Strongholds and Dominions. So this is for when the characters become master level. And they start becoming what used to be the maximum rank for or maximum level for the various character classes, and so they become masters of their classes and such. So they go through. Chapter 14 is something that I was really interested in seeing, and that is the monsters. So these are all of the monsters. They start off with just giving you general information about monsters and, how to create them and, setting up their stats and such. Some special abilities that they might have. So they go a whole section on, what is paralysis and petrification and poison and spell abilities, energy draining, disease, continuous damage, charms, charges, paralysis if I haven't mentioned it, blindness, acid attacks, swallowing, swooping, trampling. They basically give you, explanations of every type if you did want to create your own monsters. And then it goes into the monsters manual. And it is, as I was saying, really quite massive. If I just take, and I will sort through this and get just the monsters section and then show you in a different view. There, I finally got to the end of the monsters section. And then let me get back to the beginning of it, and then I'll switch views. So this right here is the entire monsters section of the book. So it is probably, I'd say, a good 30 or more pages of just dealing with the monsters in the game, of a book that is actual page count. I'm battering the crap out of my camera. 302. So they say chapter 14 runs from page 152 to 217. So actually more than 30 pages. Probably closer to 60, 65 if I'm doing my math right. 65 pages of just monster manual. And that's every single monster that is found in the first 4 box sets. So I'll keep it in this view now. So I highly, highly recommend that you get this if you don't have it already. I purchased it both in hardcover, and it also came along with the PDF so that you can always do quick references. They do have some pages in the back here. Actually, I will go back to that view and show you some of these colored plates. And so these are the world's areas that I wasn't familiar with back, in the day when I was playing this. So this is an Appendix 1. So the game world of AD&D, and not AD&D, I'm sorry, of D&D. So Alfheim, Rockholm, Sardarfjord, Vestland, and Ostrand, the Five Shires, and they go through the different, Five Shires and other locations. And then here's the maps of the various parts of the world. So here's the Kingdom of Alfheim, the Republic of Daroken. And like I said, this is all brand new for me, so I really can't wait to jump into this book and start reading it and, get a lot of as much of the detail as I possibly can, because it really is opening up a whole new world, actually two worlds to me, because here is the Hollow world. And they talk about, so again, from first to 36th level, so you're basically becoming practically a deity by the time you're getting up to those much higher levels. And perhaps that's where this Hollow world comes into play as well. Like I said, I'm unfamiliar with it. The Hollow world. The planet of the known world is not a solid ball like our Earth is. In fact, it's hollow. A tiny sun hangs in the center of the hollow, and vast polar openings permit travel between the inner and the outer worlds. The interior landscape is called the Hollow world, a place of ancient mystery. The polar openings leading into the Hollow world are so huge that their curvature is very, very gradual. That, combined with the fact that these regions are perpetually shrouded in fog, means that people can travel from the outer world to the inner world, or vice versa, without being aware of it. All right, the interior sun sheds daylight at all times in the Hollow world. Night never falls. All right, so very, very interesting. I've never played in this world setting, and so like I said, it's going to be something that I'm super, super excited about. And just they do give you the, how comprehensive this is. So here you go. So it's all the rules from D&D box set series, including basic, expert, champion, and masters, guidelines to develop and play characters from 1 through 36, comprehensive list of weapons and equipment, expanded rules, including optional skills and talents, an overview of the known world and the Hollow world. All right, campaign settings, rules to convert to games, D&D games and characters from AD&D Second Edition, game statistics, and back again, and provides all the original monsters from the earlier box sets. So, I mean, this is essentially the holy grail of playing Dungeons and Dragons. So I highly, highly recommend you get it. It was less than $30, I believe, on drive-through. So you can hit the link on my in my description for the video and go directly there, and then just look it up, and you'll see. I bought the combined set of the hardcover plus the PDF, which I recommend doing if you're looking to purchase both of these in one shot. And really, really great, great book to get. And I look forward to reading it, like I said, and using it in the future. So once again, thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed this video. And, please leave your questions and comments comments. I always respond to comments. So anything else out there that you want me to take a look at, please give a shout out for it. If you have a Kickstarter, I know I just backed a Kickstarter today. I'm going to do a whole separate video on that. I backed a Kickstarter last week. Unfortunately, I don't think that one's going to go through, but we'll see. Hopefully it does. But I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime very soon, especially with this upcoming weekend. And you all have a good evening. Thanks for joining.